Welcome back to Realize Your Potential with Mike and Travis. We are so lucky to continue our conversation on managing your mindset with one of my great friends, a guy I went to high school with. He's a Division II coach right now, Booker Harris. Thank you for joining the show to help us talk through this. As you guys know, we've been talking about how do you manage your mindset? How do you continue to push towards the things that are important in life when sometimes doubts can creep in and thoughts can creep into your head that are negative. And so for athletes, it's actually extremely important that their mindset is in the right place. So we're going to have a 2-part episode here with Booker Harris. We're going to talk a little bit about his experience going from being a top high school basketball player, going into college, and then transitioning beyond college, not to the NBA, but into the coaching realm. And then part 2 will really focus on, okay, how does he help his current players manage their mindset, and some tips that you can use as either athletes or people in business who are looking to figure out when your mindset's not in the right place, how you can manage yourself through that. So we're so lucky to have him. We're going to start by having him tell you his story. But before we do that, we always have to say, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. The support has been amazing. It has been fantastic. So thank you, everyone who's either watched it on Facebook or watching it on YouTube and talking about it. It really warms our hearts. So without further ado, Booker Harris, talk to us a little bit about your experience, my friend.
No, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. This episode, Travis, you and Mike, you guys have done some great stuff. Like I've really loved watching the YouTube clips and working on the whole PPA things, and it's great, giving me great feedback and little advice, tidbits I want to share with my players and young people. So I may have to have you guys look at our calendar so they can get you guys in live and in person instead of just having like the whole video playback thing.
Yeah, man, we would love that. Of course.
So,
of course. We won't charge you though. We'll kind of give you the homie hookup.
Appreciate that, fam. As Travis had mentioned, we went to high school together. Born and raised in San Francisco. As a 4th grader, I got interested in basketball, and it was one of those things where I got picked because at that time I was one of the taller kids. So I was probably over 5'5" or 5, something like that, some ridiculous height for a 4th grader. And as I got better and had more success, the coaches that I was playing for in youth league kind of allowed me to, fall in love with the game. And I'm not going to lie, like having success and watching the ball go through the goal and me becoming pretty good at that kind of pushed me and motivated me towards that thing. And it was one of those deals also, growing up, we played baseball when it was baseball season and tried to play football when it was football season. But the basketball thing stuck out because of it was one of those games where I just enjoyed being around. I enjoyed having teammates. I enjoyed the support I was getting at home from my parents at the time. So that's kind of how it took wind. And, as I got to junior high, past middle school to junior high, I had really good success and was getting all-star nominations for the little youth league and everything like that. So that was kind of cool. And then fast forward to high school, where I met Travis. It's one of those things as a freshman, I was lucky enough to play varsity. And it was one of those things where once again, I had seen success early and kind of that approach that I enjoyed seeing that happen. And it kind of pushed me to master my craft a little bit more at that time. And the mindset going into that is like, hey, you're having success at this. It brought me joy. Other people complimented me. So, of course, it felt good to have that reinforcement.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I'll tell you guys, he's a little humble right now. I don't know if he was always been humble, but, but he's been a little – my he was a baller in high school. I think he averaged like 28 points a game. I mean, he was hooping. And it didn't hurt. didn't hurt that his dad was the coach. You know what I'm saying? We ran a couple extra plays for Booker here and there. But shouts out Mr. Harris. Like, was a great one of the great mentors in my life. Really learned a lot from him, just about the way to carry yourself and represent yourself. And he did an amazing job of that, you know, while still being intense and expecting excellence out of us every single day. So people out there, you can be professional and still expect excellence. And Booker Harris Sr. was a really great example. So Mr. Harris, thank you so much. So not only did you get to be coached by your dad, but I think you actually got to play for with your brother for a year, right? Who was also a baller, and he was really, really good. What was that experience like, being coached by him and then playing with your brother?
You know, being a coach's son and playing for dad, it's a whole different dynamic. There's a lot of things that go into it, especially when you can at times take the game or the result home with you. So having that boundary and that marker of, you know, dad versus coach. And like I said, I did get to play with my brother for a year, who also wound up going to USF and being a Don, the best school in the West Coast Conference.
No. Second best in the WCC. It's cool. You know, go Broncos. All my Broncos out there. But it's cool. You know, you guys could go to the second best school. You know, it's all good. No problems there.
But in the high school, that experience was fun. It was a great dynamic. It's like the dynamic was amazing because you got to play with your younger brother who you normally played one-on-one in the backyard with and beat up on, but having him as a teammate, and also, you know, you as a teammate too, you guys were really, really good. You would crack jokes about me, you know, maybe shooting too much, but at the end of the day, like, it was nice. It was nice. It was nice to have that reinforcement for you guys.
We had a joke or two.
You did have a joke or two, but it was nice to have that feeling. He was like, "No, come on, you got to start playing. But go, let's go and try and win this game." So that whole reinforcement, but the whole experience, you know, of playing with a sibling was fun, and it was pretty cool. I imagine, you know, as a dad and as a coach, to have both your boys playing together.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing, and really kind of understanding from a mindset perspective, you in that class, because I think you were a year ahead of me. Like, that class really kind of set the tone when I came in of what basketball was going to be like at Bridgemont, because it was really a losing organization, a really small school. And then we started going to the playoffs all the time, and it was really, you know, the new coaching, but also just your performance and really helping your teammates see that we could be better than what we saw in the past, right? And I think that's important when you're talking about mindset, is how do you instill in people a winning mindset when the past doesn't really show you that, right? Past behavior doesn't show you that that's what's going to happen. But you did a great job of really being a leader of we were kids at the time, but you still were a leader of us and helping us realize that, yeah, we can go farther than we've ever imagined. So I thought that was really cool.
Good call out, Travis.
Yeah.
No,
I thought that was really cool.
And you'll laugh at this, because hearing that now in retrospect, in hindsight, I didn't even think about going that. But, you know, now as a coach and try to lead, for me, young men and young student athletes, it's one of those things where I'm connecting the dots. Like, maybe it was in me and I didn't see that at the time, but you brought up the mindset. It was one of those things, true, like the history had dipped at the school, and it wasn't how it had been. But, you know, my mindset was to be the best I could be. And it was one of those things where it helped in the household that I grew up in, you know, giving your effort, your best, and not being not being afraid to fail. You know what I mean? Because the hardest thing as a young person, I remember, is putting all that effort and time into something, and then if it didn't work out, all that pain and hurt and discouragement that could happen. So, like you mentioned, the whole mindset, it's one of those things where I think as an upperclassman, and you guys kind of rode along with it, with what we wanted to do, was one of those collaborations where everybody was like, yeah, we don't have to necessarily be this way. There is things we can change, and it's one of those things where you believe it's, you know, you see the will that goes into it. And I think, human will is one of the most precious and dangerous things that can alter the course of a life. And it's one of those things like you continually, um, you become what you continually do, see, and act upon. So I remember, us sneaking in on Saturday morning runs to play, no matter what time of year, even if it was in the beginning of the year with like cross country, or even in the spring if it was still baseball season. Like I remember we'd play baseball games on Friday, and then you'd be like, "Hey B, what time is your dad opening up the gym for open run?" And like we'd be playing on Saturday morning.
Man, that was the best. James used to come get me in his little blue car. We used to drive to the gym. Shouts out James G. And we used to get, man, those were the best games. I know me and Mike, we used to play with the homies as well. And those Saturday games, like, I feel like those were more intense than what we played, like, for organized basketball. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. So, but it was a lot of fun, though.
My question would
It was a
be
lot of fun.
for Mike, since he got to play with and against you, like his mindset when you started doing your usual trash talk. And I'll give you credit, you could sell some wolf tickets with the best of them.
You know what my mindset was? Camp on his left. Because he cannot go right.
Jumper. Yeah, I had that lefty. I had that lefty hook. I had it. I could do a little thing with it
Yeah.
here. But yeah, and I think Booker brought up a really good point, Mike. That I know you and I both talk about with our clients, right? Is the idea of how to persevere when times get really tough, or things are stacked against you, and what's some of the advice that you give to some of your clients?
Yeah. Well, it not so much advice, but the approach is to really try to mind what their strengths are in times in the past that they've been able to sort of persevere and demonstrate resilience and try to bring that forward, And so if there's resistance around that, call it out. You have discussions about it and sort of see more so about what's getting in the way, and create a plan, create a plan and not necessarily hold people accountable to it, but hopefully they're holding themselves accountable to it with what they want to achieve, right? So
Yeah, and I think also helping them set up accountability buddies, because I think for, like you said, it's hard for us as coaches, and Booker being coach as well, but it's hard sometimes as a coach to get on somebody continuously about not doing what they're supposed to do, right? So sometimes you've got to set up accountability buddies and help them find their own levels of accountability, because we know that that's when people really excel, is when they're holding themselves accountable, and when they are the ones who really want to get that thing done, whether that be on the basketball court, developing your right hand versus only being able to go left, or whatever the case may be, right? It takes a lot of discipline internally, not just what your coach is going to help you see and help you reveal inside of yourself.
No, that's a great call.
and I think
Oh no,
oh, go ahead. I was going to say the other thing I was thinking about, Travis, with your comment is sometimes when we're working with people, like they have this goal that they want to achieve that may not necessarily be smart, right, in terms of attainable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's exploring that, right? Like, okay, cool. Well, how do we chunk it down, so it's maybe not this big lofty thing, but how do we make smaller goals to maybe achieve that, right? And having discussions about it, because sometimes we want to shoot for the stars, which is absolutely reasonable and attainable, but sometimes that's what's getting in the way, right? Is not sort of experiencing these small successes along the way to continue to reinforce that.
Yeah, straight. I mean, nailed it. And Booker, like, how did that play out in your transition from, okay, now I'm in high school, I'm a superstar, I've led my team to the playoffs, I think like 2-3 years. Like, you've done great things, and now you're going on to college, D1 college ball. Talk about that transition and the mindset around that.
yeah, like I said, that was very vivid. Like coming from high school and having all that success, and then kind of like to piggyback what you guys were saying about having accountability. The best is from yourself, and then the others is teammates. And then luckily, I had, for me, it was like family and my younger brother. But when I made that transition from high school to college, it was eye opening, like the success, because you're 18 and you're going against a 22, 23-year old senior, who's physically stronger, who's been around the program.
Grown man strength.
So your eyes become open, and it's one of those things. For my mindset was just to give effort day in and day out, and try to have little victories that day. It started, in the morning with the right mindset when you step onto that court. And it's one of those things, having a belief, and it's one of those, the belief comes from, what are you feeding yourself as far as positivity, who you're surrounding yourself with. Because then as an athlete, you really have to step it up. I learned more about myself in time management, because in high school, you're there all day. In college, like, oh, I can set it up where I have a class at noon and I don't have to roll out of bed. And one of those things, it's like time is that attribute that goes on no matter what. You can't get it back. You can't save it. It's one of those things that happen. So being aware and managing your time. So when I did get to college, just the whole overwhelming first couple of weeks and months of the speed and how everything else moved, for me, it was eye-opening. And like I said, I was pretty good in high school, but I wasn't like an elite NBA type level type of guy with skill or athleticism. So for me, it was one of those things to kind of like be where my feet were that day. We're like, okay, I'm in this gym, I'm in this drill, I'm in this meeting, I got to get better. And use those little markers, kind of as the point is like, that's what's important now. So everything else will play out. So kind of just admit there is fear, but at the same time move forward in that, in recognizing and evaluating when you do have little markers of success or victories.
Yeah, I mean, you said a few things that really stuck out to me. One is getting the support of your family. And I think sometimes if you are a sister, a brother, a parent of someone who is either an athlete or pushing for something in business, or where mindset is really important, you being a support system is invaluable. You have to be a support system to the people, to the people around you and the network around you. So you saying you had that network that helped you, I see is really, really important. And the second piece was who you surround yourself with. And my daughter is a college athlete. She played D1 soccer. She transferred schools. And one of the things that me and my wife continuously would talk to her about is it's not just about you. It's also who you surround yourself with, because the people you surround yourself with will influence your behavior and dictate, in some ways, will dictate the actions that you take. And sometimes those actions won't be beneficial to your goal. And so you have a goal to get here, but you're surrounding yourself with people who don't necessarily have the same challenges that you might have. They may not have the same mindset that you have in terms of where you want to go and where they want to go. And so in an effort for them to just be your friend and hang out with you, they may actually be getting in the way of your success. And so really understand who you surround yourself with. And I know that that's something that you talk about a ton, Mike. I mean, you've talked about it in our videos. You talked about it. You talk about it with your clients. You talk about it with everybody. What do you think about what Booker and I just talked about with that? How important that is?
It's paramount, right? Because it's how do you continue to nudge yourself, right? Because you can take your own self and motivate yourself and try to persevere, but there's something to it in terms of having a team that can support you, right? So I mean, it's not much for me to add, because I think everyone can relate to that and acknowledge that, if you have a team behind you that's supporting you, and even you being that for other people, like-mindedness and even if you're around people that may not be like-minded, you might be role modeling the way for them, right? And encouraging and empowering them to be able to achieve maybe things that they weren't even aware of, So.
And I think it's so funny because as I watch these videos back and I get comment from people and people are like, yeah, it's so obvious. Like, of course I should, surround myself with the right people. Like, of course. But the question that I'll ask everyone who's watching this video is, have you done an assessment of your group of people? Who influences your decision and who you put yourself around? Because it's different than just saying, yeah, I've heard that before. That's not new advice. And then also actioning that and actually taking a actual assessment of your life and saying, this is the right person. This is the wrong person. This person is cool for these things only, but not for this, right? And really making sure that you keep the right people that will help you reach your goals in your life, I think is really, really important. Before we wrap this session, B, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your feelings of, okay, I'm here, I'm going against grown men, I was a star, I'm not necessarily a star where I am today. How did you deal with that mentally? And then the idea that, man, I might not be playing basketball beyond this point. How'd you deal with that? Like, how'd you transition that?
Both were hard. The first part of the question where you mentioned the training and getting adapted, it was one of those things where I realized, it was something I wanted to do. It was a passion, and I like the term passion because it has passio, which is Greek to mean willing to endure suffering. So day in and day out, the ups and the downs, it's one of those things where I rode through it and I realized kind of like doing something over and over again, like the repetition became like the mother of the skill. And once again, like improvement happened that way. And whether it's positive thoughts or positive outlooks and stuff like that, like the repetition is consciously on your mind, and so everything else kind of in a sense goes to like your subconscious, and it kicks in. It's almost like the download. So the positivity that's in the front of your mind, all of a sudden while you're shooting a free throw, per se, like you said, you stop thinking about it. Once you at some point in time, you're just like, I've done this 1,000, 10,000 times, so it's automatic, it's going in. So I'm like Travis on Saturday mornings or in practice in high school, it's like, that's a make. So it winds up happening over and over over and over again, and you see the success.
Stop it. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And then that last piece, which is, okay, now, I'm probably not going to be playing basketball beyond this point. I've got to look to other careers. What was that like mindset wise, and how did you deal with it?
Like at that age, that's the whole identity thing, because you had put all that energy, effort day in and day out of being a college basketball player, and that was difficult. You took time away, and then you always were brought back to like, normally I would be doing this. So the transition of realizing that the ball did stop bouncing was one of those things where I really had to sit down and kind of look at what else I wanted to do with that. And like my mindset at that time was trying to find something I enjoyed, or a way to still be around the game, or a different avenue, which kind of led me to coaching. And as a senior, where the writing's on the wall as far as like time's up and the ride was here, I was able to, have other avenues of interest, or be around and like mentor my younger teammates. And that for me kind of drew out the thing to be around the game still, and maybe be like a coach or a mentor, because you had been in a spot where you went through all different type of things and avenue. And at that age, you sometimes forget, you're like, I'm the only one going through this. But when you open up and realize and pull out support pieces, there's a lot of people going through a whole bunch of different things, and you don't know everyone's story. But if you do take the time to connect with people, you'd be surprised how many people are feeling the same array of emotions and riding that wave just like you are. So commencing out the door into the real world, it was scary. There was fear, no doubt. But taking a step forward and making that decision to go and kind of find my avenue, whether it was, having connections to maybe be like a a coach, a recruiter, or even something that's crazy is in sales, because you're connecting with people. And like I'd say
Yeah,
the biggest
absolutely.
thing, you guys could probably relate, because this project that you guys are putting together, still it's young right now, but like I said, it's taken a lot of thought on you guys, a lot of energy to step out and fear, and say, where do we want to go with this deal, and how can we help others? So um, I'm sure if I talked to you guys 5 years ago, or if we met in the city hanging out, you guys probably wouldn't have said like, "Oh yeah, I could see this collaboration coming at that point in time," right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, good call out. As we wrap, Mike, I love your insight because Hal was on our show a couple episodes ago and talked about the difference between being focused on being a superstar or focused on working, right? And I probably butchered that quote, but it was beautiful how he said it. And what it broke down to me is that sometimes we are chasing the fame and the fortune, and we're not necessarily chasing our passion, which is the work. And if we do the work with passion, then the fame and fortune comes from that, right? And that's kind of how I saw it. Can you help us wrap, Mike, with what your thoughts are around those points that Booker just talked about, and how that parallels?
Yeah, I think it's having a it's not having a mind shift, but it's coming to the
Mm,
realization that, okay, this is what my reality is. Like, how do I then navigate this change? And
mm,
I think for some people, they can get there quicker than most, or not quicker than most, but quicker than other people. But I think the fact of sort of having that awareness, or maybe even someone in your support system pointing out that, like, hey, like, you know, this is coming up to a close. The your senior year in your college career is coming up. Like, what have you thought about? Like, how are you going to transition? Have you given thought to that? And I think for me, it's being able to point that out and have those discussions is where value is, right? But also, but
mm.
also, whoever you're talking to has to be open and have some awareness around that, because sometimes
Yeah,
people get stuck in their dreams, and it's
yeah.
and that can get interesting. So
Yeah, managing your mindset through realistic conversations. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Booker, for joining us for this first part of this episode on managing your mindset. We really appreciate it. Next week, team, we're going to talk a lot about how Booker made that transition from being a college athlete and then now being a head coach, really a CEO of a program. And what does that look like for his young athletes? And hopefully, we will have some more takeaways for those of you that are just coming up in your careers or are athletes and maybe are dealing with some mindset issues. And maybe some of this stuff is going to play out for you. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. And if you go to www.realizingnow.com, you will see our website for Mike and I for Realize Now. We are professional coaches, consultants, and trainers, and we're here to help guide you through whatever you may be facing in your life. So if you're having struggles with mindset that's stopping you from reaching your goals and your passions, we can be here to help you. I know that we spend a ton of time with our clients developing a specific plan built for just them and their specific needs. And so we'd love to help anyone who may need some help. So let us know. Once again, www.realizingnow.com. And join us next week as we complete this episodes with Booker. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.